This is the day for a Uruguayan football expert to be on, really, isn't it?
Linesman wasn't interested at all.
I think these are the cases where bans should be measured by time rather than games, because you're starting to get to a busy period of the season. If he's banned for 8 or 9 games, he might be back in just over a month.
Hello guys and welcome to the Sportsman Untitled. We are back for another championship roundup, if you will. I'm joined by Justin Peach and Kris Voakes after another thrilling weekend. And my first question to both of you is, have we had our breakfast this morning? We're not feeling too hungry, not feeling a bit nibbly. I am, of course, talking about Preston's militant Osmajic, who had a bit of a nibble at Owen Beck, it looked like. Looks like there might be a lengthy ban incoming, Justin. I mean, what was your reaction when you saw that?
I mean, disbelief. I mean, when do you cover? I'm struggling to find words for it now, even like 24 hours after. When as an adult podcaster, any pundit, when are you going to cover, two people, someone biting another person in a football match? It's just complete disbelief, and you have to check it and see how obvious it is, because sometimes it can be very innocuous. He might just look like he was going to bite him or biting him, but actually no, he just takes a big chunk out of Owen Beck's back, which is just absolutely mad.
This is the day for a Uruguayan football expert to be on, really, isn't it?
It was Beck's reaction as well. He was like showing the linesman, clearly he had been bitten, had tooth marks or whatever in the back. Linesman wasn't interested at all, and then the ref obviously sent him off for, it was a bad challenge, right, Kris? The initial challenge.
Oh, yeah, it was horrific, and but you know, having played or watched, I've never felt the need to bite somebody after seeing something like that. But it was a kind of recall to Giorgio Chiellini at the World Cup, wasn't it? Like showing his shoulder to try to get Suarez sent off. But yeah, absolutely ridiculous. And there's just no chance that he's going to be seeing a football field anytime soon, I think, Osmajic.
Yeah, if we look at kind of the Suarez thing, I think he got like a 9-game ban or then a 10-game ban.
Which one?
Yeah, exactly. Obviously, he had multiple ones, and then it was like a 4-month ban from football, wasn't it? So if we're judging it by that, he's probably going to be out till near Christmas, right? It's going to be a 10-game ban.
Yeah, and when you consider it from a footballing perspective as well, Preston need a striker on the pitch. Emil Rees hasn't had the best of form since really coming back from his ACL injury last season. And when you consider how poor they've been in terms of creating chances as well, having a striker just in and around the team is going to be useful, but to have a ban for biting someone, it's just absolutely ridiculous. And even Paul Heckingbottom's reaction after the game was just almost like humorous disbelief, like, I can't believe this happened.
What I walked into.
Yeah. He did the old media training, I'll have to see it back, but you know what he saw, and he tried to smile through it, but it presents him with a difficult situation as well, which is just, ridiculous.
What is it about strikers that make them so bitey?
They play on the edge, that's what it is.
One man who is out of a job now after this weekend is Errol Bullitt. Cardiff, bottom of the table, 1 point from 6 games. Justin, it's been a really poor start for Cardiff. I don't think too much was expected of them this season, but were you surprised to see Bullitt gone kind of this early?
Not really, no. It's got to a point where it's untenable. The style of football that changed from being quite a rigid team last season and it working for them, getting results, it paid off. And then that transition to trying to be a possession-based team this season really hasn't worked. They did recruit relatively well in the summer. They don't have a world-beating squad by any means, but it's certainly a squad that is, I think, good enough to push for mid-table. It has a sort of a top-end target. But the way they're playing, they're not creating any chances. The selection issues that they had in terms of not starting Ruben Cowell and Callum Robinson when they really needed to, that was a strange decision from Errol Bullitt. And then of course you can tell he lost the fans, and then the board's the board, they're going to make that decision because the results have been poor. But it feels like it's been a long time coming, despite him signing a new contract in the summer.
Defeat this weekend to Leeds was probably expected, but as Justin mentioned, it's kind of an accumulation of what's happened so far and what happened kind of towards the end of last season as well.
Yeah, and they were one of those sides, even when they were in a good run of form last year, that I didn't particularly enjoy watching them play. And they had a good result early at Leeds, but other than that, most of the time that I saw them, it was just, I was never completely convinced by the style of football last year. They've tried to change it and it's backfired, and I just never felt like Bullitt was really on a roll with them at all. So it's no surprise to me at all that they've been one of the teams that have struggled this season, and that it's all ended so quickly.
With kind of Vincent Tan in charge, it feels like the stadium's always kind of half empty. They've got that giant main stand with the red seats in the top half. They've obviously had the reminder of the red dragon and the change of crest and everything. It feels like they're a club that really needs to find themselves again. And we're looking at kind of potential replacements or who could come in, would you suggest Steven Schumacher, who's just left Stoke, might fancy this one?
Steven Schumacher deserves another shot at a Championship club. I don't want to see him go to a club that is as volatile as Cardiff City is. They've sacked a lot of managers in recent years. Quite a lot of change under Vincent Tan. I mean, even if you just look at the sackings that they've had over the past, during Tan's tenure, 6 have gone during the autumn period, and it's just it feels like it's a honeymoon period. Bit of success and then they go. That's really the managerial life cycle at Cardiff. So, with Steven Schumacher, you want to see him get a job where things are quite settled, and I just don't think it's going to be the case at Cardiff, which begs the question, who do they go for next?
That's hard in the Championship though at the minute, isn't it? Because there are a lot of clubs suddenly who have become Cardiff-esque in terms of high turnover of managers, and if you're in the pool that Steven Schumacher's probably in at the moment, you're doing very well to go into a club that isn't a bit of a mess or, has been through a really rough trot. So you can understand why you'd want to get back into the game pretty quickly. Obviously, you want to recall those memories of what he did at Plymouth rather than be the guy who got sacked at Stoke and stayed out of the game for a while. So it might be an opportunity for him. But yeah, there's probably one or two where you'd pick out the job opportunity there rather than at Cardiff. But
you're right to touch upon the fact that to get a Championship job, they're probably going to sack the manager because they're floating near the relegation zone. Obviously, Cardiff are bottom right now after 6 games, very early, can still be turned around. But if you're Schumacher, would you wait and hold on a bit?
I don't think he's going to necessarily end up taking over a Leeds or a Sheffield United anytime soon. But at the same time, I think there are clubs out there that might suit him a little bit more. No matter what, though, I think he is going to be walking into a club where there's a bit of turmoil because that's just the nature of things at the moment.
Justin, let's talk about Derby County because they've been all right this season, right? 3 wins so far, 3 losses. It's going quite well. Obviously lost to Sheffield United this weekend, but a good start and Paul Warne deserves some credit for that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've been very critical of Paul Warne, and what I've seen from him so far this season has been a learning of mistakes that they've been making. You go back to the Blackburn game on the opening day of the season and Derby didn't really offer anything. They were quite scared to attack. And I think that's still the case with certain games and certain opposition. And that's where the tactical naivety comes into it with Paul Warne. But actually, when they want to play on the front foot, like they have at home, aside from the Middlesbrough win, they have looked very aggressive on the front foot, very high press, and very, very good. It's just there's certain games where they'll come up against a Middlesbrough where they get too defensive, and that's where they'll come undone a little bit. But I think with Paul Warne, being able to motivate the team, being able to create that aggressive style of play, I think is a positive. And even against Sheffield United, first half was it was a good showing from them. Probably went into their shell a little bit in the second half, and maybe got that defensive mentality sort of overtook them a little bit, but I think in terms of how they play at home, that's been the real bonus.
It's interesting to kind of say it, but a 1-0 defeat at Bramall Lane to Sheffield United when there's such a disparity in the squads and the money spent and the quality on the pitch, it's quite a good result for Derby in a way because you can take confidence from that. It's all about picking up points at home for survival, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you're going to survive in the Championship, you need to win games at home. You need to pick up results away. Not really been the case yet for Derby, but luckily, there are a couple of worse teams than them at the moment. But you are absolutely right. Getting a result or a narrow defeat to Sheffield United, you've got to remember that Gus Hamer scored a beauty of a free kick as well. So it could have easily been a 0-0 if things would have been slightly different. It wasn't the case, but you do take more confidence from that sort of performance. Maybe not the result, but certainly the performance, because that's the sort of performance that will get you results away from home, especially against the so-called lesser teams, if you like.
And Kris, how important is it for... We've seen Oxford have a reasonably good start. We've seen Derby have a good start in terms of points on the board. Contrast that with Portsmouth, who are struggling slightly after a difficult fixture run. Those 3 teams coming up, how important is it that they kind of get points on the board early? And how much of a benefit would it be for Oxford and Derby in contrast to Portsmouth?
Yeah, there's that sense of desperation already a little bit about Portsmouth, isn't it? Because they've not been picking up the points. They've put in a couple of good performances. They've been in games, but just not getting over the line and getting that first win, it's going to start to play on you after a little while. Whereas, even on the first day of the season, Oxford looked like they knew how to go about getting a result, and Derby had done very well compared to what some people suggested they might do so far. Yeah, that's the struggle for Pompey now. Even you start to come to softer schedule kind of thing, get run of games that you might be more likely to win, but if you don't pick up that first win, it just becomes more and more of a grind with every single result. I know from last season.
Speaking from experience, Sheff Wednesday didn't feel like they won a game till about Christmas, really, and then obviously found a miracle manager who kept you up. So maybe you're not the best example to us there, because I don't think that Portsmouth might not be able to find that. Talking of Wednesday, unlucky against Luton, a defeat. I know you're a bit frustrated about the red card penalty situation. Yeah,
it's one of those, like, the luck's not with us at the moment. There was probably at least a couple of fouls in the QPR equaliser the week before, and then Deshaun Bernard motions towards the ball, but it's off the shoulder. It's actually a great block, and the way he's kind of pinned his arm behind his back. But then, as soon as a red card happens, you're up against it. There's probably at least one handball in the winner. But, the referee can only call what he sees. It's just one of those. It's just our luck at the moment. I saw somebody comment that I can't wait for our luck to level out because we're going to go on a hell of a run at some point.
So still against VAR in the Championship though, Kris? Even after...
Yeah. I like, as much as it's gone against my side this week, I like the fact that the decision's made. There's no arguing over it. You're off the pitch if it's a red card. You get on with it. If you lost, at the end of the day, Wednesday had a couple of really good chances in the first half. The game could have been buried long before that situation came about. You're always living on your nerve ends. If it's only 1-0, it's not always in your control at that point. So it's one of those. Go beat West Brom again on Saturday.
There's also no guarantee VAR would have even made a different decision to the referee, is
there? No, exactly. We've seen in the Premier League, it's hardly foolproof, is it? So.
And Luton, obviously a good result for them in the end, 2 wins in a row now. It feels like they might be starting to turn a corner under Rob Edwards.
You'd hope so, because the performances have been really, really poor. And you can argue that, okay, they probably deserved a little bit more in games, but they've been very wasteful in front of goal. I mean, for Cotton Morris to get his first 2 goals of the season after this far into the season is pretty poor from him. Elijah Adebayo is still guilty of missing chances as well. It's not quite good enough. And I think that's the thing with Luton, is that there's expectation there now. They have to deal with that. They're no longer the plucky underdog. They have a big enough squad, a relatively expensive squad as well. That's been well put together. They have to be putting the performances in and getting results. And a scrappy 2-1 win at home to Wednesday, they'll take it all day. But for me, performances do need to continue to improve.
Do you think it's just expectation though? It feels like they did well in the Premier League last season. I thought they've not lost too many players. It's the same kind of squad we saw. It feels bizarre that they've had this kind of slowish start and they've won their last 2. So maybe that's a question of the expectation there, that we're saying they're not playing well enough and they've won their last 2 games. Yeah,
I mean, it's symptomatic of quite a lot of teams that we'll probably talk about in the next sort of half an hour, is that they've lost a lot of the old guard, if you like, the Dan Potts, I'm trying to whistle through them now, I'm going to forget them. But they've lost quite a few players that were very influential in getting them up into the Championship and then in the Premier League. And with that goes a lot of leadership and a lot of that culture that put the club in that position. And you replace it with new players, and it takes some time to settle in. And I think that's part of the problem, but also maybe coming down to the Championship and maybe it being a better standard than what they played when they originally went up. I know it was only a couple of seasons ago, but I think it has. Really, got better.
It's just one of those scenarios as well. In a lot of ways, I thought they played a lot better when I saw them lose 4-1 to Burnley than they played at the weekend. They had spells in that game before it got away from them where I thought they were really in it. Whereas on Saturday, I was disappointed in Luton up until the red card and the kind of turning point, because they didn't really have that spell in the game where you really thought, right, this is a parachute team doing what they do in the Championship. So Rob Edwards was right the previous week when he said that wasn't our best performance and there's a lot of learning to go on. Same again this week, but it's just the Championship being what it is. You often can pick up results when you're not playing as well as you do in a heavy defeat in the Burnley case.
I'll touch on something that Justin just mentioned as well, because in this kind of modern era of stats and XG and all this chance created, it feels like the unquantifiable thing of leadership and experience is so important, especially in the Championship. And we've seen maybe at my club Coventry that we've lost that, and it's made a massive impact on our squad because we've got a squad full of young talented players, but no one to really drive them forward. I just don't know if you want to jump in on just how important you feel it is to get a team in the top 6 or promoted.
Yeah, I think it's massively important. I think if you look at Sheffield United, for example, they've started really well, but the performances haven't been amazing, not been blowing teams away. Like, you look at Derby. Chris Wilder said himself that when he went on a walk in the morning before the game, he expected. Fans were saying, 2-3-0, but it was a very gritty, difficult game, and I think that speaks to probably a lot of the players that Sheffield United lost, at John Egan's, Chris Basham's. Again, a lot of that culture of that club is gone, and he's had to start again. Essentially, you've got to rebirth that and go again, and it's very difficult. So very solid foundations, but Coventry City going through that as well, I think, and Luton as well. It matters to have those types of players in and around the squad. Whether they are having an impact on the pitch week by week is another question. But what they do outside of that is really important. And I think you do see that.
That's where fans kind of see names on a team sheet or names in a squad, but you're not sat in the dressing room. You don't know who's picking someone up or having a word with them when they've made a mistake. And I think that's where your 30-plus-year-olds, really come into their own.
And that can make a difference as well. And back to Wednesday, they got a great result against Plymouth on the first day of the season, but a lot of the new players weren't really fitting in. And as soon as the likes of Liam Palmer, Marvin Johnson, Michael Smith have been given a chance again, the performances have been all right. The results haven't gone with them, but they're important. Performances have improved, and it can just be that kind of reminder of what a club is about sometimes that gets the team back on the right track.
We're only 6 games into the season, but we'll do a little overview and look at some of Justin's pre-season predictions as well and talk about them. But 6 games in so far, might seem easy to say the teams at the top, but Kris, which team has kind of impressed you the most so far, or which has exceeded your expectations the most as well?
There was a few eyebrows raised when Gab mentioned Sunderland, and they've been so good for the most part. Obviously, they late lost to Plymouth, but they blew Wednesday apart pretty much. And in the bits of the other games that I've seen, they've really impressed in terms of just imposing enough authority on the games. And I think home park is still one of those places where not a lot of teams are necessarily going to go and pick up easy wins. So it was just one of those championship results, if you like. But I've been really impressed by Sunderland so far.
They've got that young squad like Chris Rigg, Bellingham. They've got all these young, talented players in there, but they've also got a Luke O'Nien, which we talk about experience in the championship. He seems like the perfect guy to kind of show them the ropes almost.
Well, he's a player that just understands the club, understands the fans, and I think that comes out across on the pitch as well. And it's just that healthy balance. I mean, the signing of Adam Brown I think is pivotal for Sunderland, because I think what they lacked last season was leadership on the pitch. And you bring in a player like Adam Brown, who's not really pulled up too many trees at Preston, been a very hard-working player, been very well liked at Deepdale, but he's never really stood out. But, again, what he brings on the pitch is that extra bite energy, but also that leadership aspect. It's just astonishing how they started, because, again, that young squad that they've got and how well they've shut teams out, other than that Plymouth game, how well they shut teams out and how incredible they've been going forward. Whilst losing Jack Clark, I think it's just, absolutely bonkers.
A massive credit to not only Regis Labrise in his first kind of job in English football, but the kind of recruitment team who decided he was the man for the job. I mean, it is very early days with 6 games
Eventually decided.
Good things take time, Kris. Clearly they've made the right decision there. He's doing a fantastic job. For you, Justin, which side has kind of caught your eye?
I mean, aside from Sunderland are the obvious choice, but West Brom have really impressed me. I think when you consider the fact that they got put into that transfer embargo, made things quite difficult. They had a very active, very good transfer window. I think the squad, despite losing a lot of international pedigree and on paper probably better players than the ones that they brought in, I think they're probably more rounded, in better shape, squad depth wise, with quality. And again, how well, similar to Sunderland, how well they've shut teams out and how well they've been going forwards. Josh Madger's turned into a prime Pipo Inzaghi, which is just incredible. Like, he's the ultimate goal hanger, because he's just in the right position every time, and it's not only speaks to a quality player but also quality coaching, because the ball's going to him every time. No matter how they get through West Brom, they will find him. And Alex Mowatt's been probably one of the players this season as well. So West Brom.
His movement in the highlights that I was watching against Plymouth, he makes the same run into the box, it seems, most times. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, because he darts towards that back post, and he had one where he just missed the target in the first half, and in the second half he did the same thing and found the back of the net and won the game. It seems like Corberan is magic touch again. He's given him all the confidence he needs from a player who maybe hasn't really found a home in the last few years, maybe since he left Sunderland, really.
Well, he obviously made the move to Bordeaux, and it did relatively well there, and then had a couple of loan spells at Stoke, and then at Fulham as well. And he, again, probably never really found a home, never really found appreciated the love. But Corberan does that. you look at that Huddersfield team that he got to third in the Championship a couple of years ago, and obviously to the playoff final. There weren't no world beaters there. It was a very average squad. So what you got out of that team was incredible. And I think he's got better players at his disposal now, and probably better access to bringing players in. But you look at Josh Madger, for example, he's good enough to be a regular at Championship level. It's just about finding home, keeping him fit, and he's currently doing that, and he's paying dividends for it.
I think we said it after Madger got his hat-trick on the opening day. Like, you can learn from experiences like he had at Bordeaux, and they can make you a far better player than a few years of kind of moderate success in the Championship might. He looks like a completely, well, not necessarily a changed player, even though a lot of people at Sunderland who had high hopes for him, but it just looks like he's so mature in what he does. And like you say, his movement, he's very much one of those strikers now who they'll burst into, try to do the same thing 5 times, even if it only works once, it's enough.
Potential Golden Boot winner for sure. I think he's leading the race right now, and that was one of our predictions that we did. Check out the pre-season preview if you want to. It's Benjamin Bloom, Gab Sutton, Justin's on it as well. So if you want to laugh at some pre-season predictions already, give that a watch, please. We'll put a link down below. Your league winners and promotion, your promoted 3 were Leeds, Coventry and Luton. Justin, we've talked a bit about Luton already. How are you feeling kind of about the other 2, and still confident? More confident than I am.
Probably more confident with Leeds, because I think it's going to take some time for their new signings to bed in. They left it very late in the transfer window to bring those in, but I think they will be a success and they will find a consistency. I know I've seen a few Leeds fans very frustrated with Daniel Farke, but you got to understand the hand he was dealt with over the summer was a pretty rough one. So again, I think it'll be a bit of a slow burner, but they're still picking up results, which is a positive. As for Coventry, that annual slow start is underway. It's beggars belief, really, because they'll go on it. We know they're going to go on an incredible run, sort of October, November onwards. We know that's going to happen, hopefully, this season. But it just what can change if they do make pick up a few wins in the first sort of 7 or 8 games. They've been really, really poor. They've been easy to play through, which has been the most sort of surprising thing. Watching them and understanding them. Less confident about them. I think Luton can probably start to pick up results, but Coventry not even winning ugly at the moment, which is a shock.
I think midfield is the big issue at Cov at the moment. Ben Chief's played 20 minutes maybe this season. He was on the bench again, didn't come on. I think if he comes into the team and is fit, obviously he's going to make a massive difference, but we were let down in the transfer window, I think, by not bringing in another midfielder, and I think that would have really helped us. We're not good enough at the moment, pretty much. We're creating quite a few chances, which hopefully things will turn around. It's the most pressure Mark Robins has been under as well, because we've spent the money. I think he's got a bit more credit and time in the bank. I hope that is the case and he can turn things around. But I wouldn't have us getting promoted right now if I had to say. Difficult start. Relegation, Plymouth, Derby and Watford, we are 3. I mean, we can talk about Watford a bit, Kris. Let's start with them. They've been very impressive under Tom Cleverley. They were beaten this weekend by Norwich, but they don't seem like a team that is in danger of going down right now. No,
and they had moments in that game as well, and they were kind of put on the back foot from the start. Lost Porteous quickly, lost Backman quickly. Although he shouldn't have done something about that first goal. He seemed to dive long before the ball even came in. But it can't have helped them at all that there was so much change early on in that game. They got a foothold in the game, and they've got some good players in there. Chatford Tazza on this day can be a real danger, and the results have been great that side. They've surprised me in how well they've started. Tom Cleverley's doing a good job there, better than certainly I thought he might do. So all props to them. I think
that's the thing with Cleverley and Watford. I think we all thought the same thing. They're quite trigger happy owners. He's inexperienced, but he's taken to the job really, really well, hasn't he?
I mean, there's perhaps an overachievement in before the international break in terms of the amount of games they were winning, and maybe erring on the side of luck with some of them. I mean, that Millwall game was quite incredible, scoring from a corner, free kick, and Millwall absolutely battering them, but they came away with the 3 points. I think we might see a little bit of a levelling out with Watford. I think they will, I won't say drop off considerably, but certainly, as I say, that first few games might have been a bit of a false dawn for them. But you are right. I think Tom Cleverley has done a really good job. I think he settled things down. It was a very, a lot of tension around Vicarage Road, especially amongst supporters. I think Cleverley just got results on the board, calmed it all down, and we saw what he is capable of. And he's a good coach. It's just whether or not Watford's the right place for him.
And the other two relegated teams you had were Derby and Plymouth. I mean, Plymouth are about probably where we thought they'd be. I think their performances have been maybe better. I mean, since that first game at Sheffield Wednesday, I think they've certainly improved. They look a bit more competitive, and we've spoken about Derby already, but Wayne Rooney at Plymouth, maybe he does have enough to keep them in the division. Yeah,
well, they started with a 4-4-2 and they were getting hammered. And then they went to a 4-2-3-1, started to even out, and then they've gone back to a 4-3-3, and they're looking much more competitive. A lot of Plymouth fans would probably tell you that they have been better in games, but unfortunately that quality you need to win championship games hasn't been there often enough. And they do have those players that can win your games, like Morgan Whittaker. It's just getting them in the right positions and doing it often. Wayne Rooney did that with Tom Lawrence. The season that Derby went down and had the points deduction, did that with Tom Lawrence, got him in good positions, got him in goal scoring positions, and it paid off. Very risky strategy because you're not creating chances sustainably. You're relying on quality from the individual, which again, it's a very difficult thing to do. So whether they stay up or not is another thing. But I think their performances have gradually improved. It's been slow, but they have been getting better.
I think that adversity they found themselves in away to QPR really helped them as well, because you lose a man in the first half. There's that you've got to be strong and together and show the real team spirit. And then obviously down to 9 late on as well. And it felt like a massive point for them and a massive kind of, we can do this. Great result against Sunderland. There's going to be weekends like this weekend where Morgan Whittaker has a great opportunity after the error by Carl Bartley. And if that goes in, there's a great chance Plymouth get something out of that game, because it's just one of those where you hang on and show the resilience against a bigger side. They didn't get that, but West Brom were always going to eventually score a goal, given the chances they had for as long as it stayed 0-0. And I think they'll do okay. Like I said after that first game of the season, even then they'll be better than a lot of people expect. I think it's probably similar to the Tom Cleverley thing. You can go through that Manchester United side and pick out about 15 people you'd expect to be a manager before Rooney, before Cleverley. Well, I think both of them probably outdo the expectation.
Good stuff. And we won't go through all your predictions here, Justin, but your flop or worry of the season was Chris Wilder, and he gets sacked. Decent start at Sheffield United, another win this weekend. Do we think it's because they've got better players than most teams they face, or does Wilder deserve some credit himself for kind of unifying this squad and getting off to a quick start when many thought they'd struggle after last season?
Yeah, I think Wilder deserves a lot of credit. I think, again, I was expecting quite a sulky individual with Chris Wilder. He did that a lot last season, and it was quite tiresome just going through it as a not even a supporter. But I think they had a fairly decent transfer window. It could have been a lot better in terms of depth that they were bringing in, but in terms of quality of players they brought in, really, really good. I think Chris Wilder's starting to get them going. And as I say, I think unifying the squad is as big as anything. I was speaking earlier about the culture of the club going. It was a big task, a really big task, probably one that is probably gone under the radar in a championship this season. So for Chris Wilder to get results on the board, get everyone sort of calmed down and relaxed, and just chipping away at things, I think, is really, really positive. Yeah, in his first spell there, he was a really infectious personality, wasn't he? And you just felt that there was a massive buy-in from everybody. It felt like the exact opposite in a lot of ways last season. It just seemed like
he had a lot to moan about. He had a lot to whinge about.
It seemed like the kind of law of never go back was kind of shining through with that. But he's done a great job over the summer. I think you asked me at the end of last season whether Sheffield United could come back up with the state that the club seemed to be in at the time. But I said at the time, a championship season is long, and they're bound to hit upon something at some point. I didn't think it'd be this early, I've got to say. But yeah, they're going to be more than okay, I think.
Yeah, I think they're top 6 contenders for sure. Justin, we'll finish these pre-season chat with which of your predictions do you feel strongest about right now, and which is the one you would want to change? We wrote them all down there, so take your pick. Yeah, I mean, biggest surprise, Preston, is that's come in because they sacked a manager after one game. So I'll take that. We didn't define how that was going to be, but yeah, it was a surprising bite as well this weekend as well. So you can include that as well. Exactly. So yeah, Preston has certainly been the surprising club. I mean, first manager to be sacked as well. I went with Paul Warne, and he's done very well. And obviously, the first manager to be sacked this
season with Steven Schumacher. So I think that's the biggest surprise, is the fact that he was the first to go. Never
not counting Ryan Lowe then?
That was mutual. That was mutual. Yeah.
Any you'd really want to change out of them? You're thinking, I might have got this wrong.
I mean, if Mark Robbins, I've gone with Mark Robbins as manager of the season. If he delivers promotion, then certainly deserves it, because that start's been so poor. But I'll go with promotion when it's just having Coventry up there. I'm now very unsettled, and how reliant you are on Brendan Sheff is quite frightening.
Yeah, worrying.
And there's teams performing well at the top as well, albeit small sample size. You know, West Brom, Sunderland, Sheffield United, Leeds all look pretty good. We were expecting that this would be a closer season in terms of there were 4 standout teams last year. We might find ourselves in a few weeks' time thinking we've got the same again if those teams continue on that trajectory.
I'm not sure there'll be runaway teams in terms of 97, 95 points, but I think the quality in like the top 12, like Swansea can play some good stuff, Norwich, those sorts of teams, I feel have progressed since last season. And if anything, that makes the top 6 quite hard to get into.
Yeah, it's the consistency element though as well, isn't it? Like Norwich looked like anything but a football team on the first day of the season. They've started to pick it up. Can they sustain that? And that's going to be the question, I think.
Yeah, it's worth considering as well. We've not hit that Saturday, Tuesday phase of the season where it's game after game after game. You've got no rest. And that's where we'll start to see teams either pull away or really fall away.
That's tiring just for fans, that bit of the season.
We'll talk about the current top 6 as well. It's West Brom, Sunderland, Burnley, Blackburn, Sheffield United, Leeds. Good starts from them all. Justin and Kris, I'll come to you. If you had to pick one of those to definitely finish in the top 6 come May, who would you be picking right now?
The safest bet, I think, is West Brom. I think Carlos Corberan, in the most horrendous of circumstances, probably could still deliver a top 6 finish. Whether they go on to win automatic promotion is another question. But I think in terms of all those teams there, I'd be more confident with West Brom just because of Carlos Corberan. I think Leeds are a good bet, but it's a Leeds factor, isn't it? You just can't really, if things go bad, they go really bad. If they go well, they go really well.
Feels like they are a couple of results away from really turning on Daniel Farke. Like he gets results at this level and they're in the top 6 at this early stage, but they don't feel far away from a disaster, really. Yeah.
But they don't feel far away from a 100-point team either. Some weeks. So
yeah, that's the other point. I think it's if you ask me again in sort of 3 or 4 weeks, that Leeds decision would probably be a lot easier to make. But I think if you're going to pick anyone, it's got to be West Brom.
Yeah, I'd go Leeds. I just think there were a lot of Leeds fans who got on Farke's back as soon as they lost the playoff final last year. Well, he had a kind of positive record compared to Bielsa's first season, more points, reached the final rather than the semi. I know circumstances kind of play a part in that, but they've got so much quality still in that squad despite what they've lost, and they can really tear through teams. I know Cardiff lost a man on Saturday, but there was never any doubt that they were going to win that game. There's going to be a lot of games this season where there's just no doubt that Leeds are going to pick up the 3 points, and Farke has got the record at this level.
I think I'd put Sheffield United up there and Burnley in the same sense that I think if you have the quality of players that those two have, you're going to win more games than you lose, even if it's quite even. I think we saw this weekend with Hamer at Sheffield United scoring that free kick. They just win your games. You can kind of account for all the kind of circumstances Saturday, Tuesday. The better players in the better squads win more games. It's kind of that simple.
I think there's a few of those clubs though, and that, maybe this is the kind of cleverly Rooney thing, but I just don't see Scott Parker getting the very best out of those Burnley players, and I think there's going to be times during the season where your West Broms or your Leeds might be really on it when Burnley are just dropping points here and there, because I'm just not bought in on Scott Parker at the minute, as good a squad as they've got.
Yeah, I think the Scott Parker factor does play a big role in it with Burnley. They are a team that, if you buy into XG, they haven't been a better side against all of their opposition this season. They've not created better chances than their opposition. And I think that starts to level out as the season goes on. They've got a lot of quality, and we saw that against Portsmouth. It got them through the game. Can't rely on that every week. It's just not sustainable, especially in the Championship when you're playing Saturday, Tuesday.
Yeah, didn't they have 4 chances, 5 goals against Cardiff?
Yeah, that was a mad one, wasn't it? Right, we'll finish this podcast with the good, bad and ugly, where we all pick something good, something bad and something ugly from this week's Championship action. Justin, do you want to start with your good?
Yeah, I've gone with Chris Rigg and his performance against Middlesbrough. It was the derby that isn't a derby, if you're to believe Sunderland fans. But for a 17-year-old to dominate the midfield as well as he did, and that's without even talking about his goal. I know it was an open goal, but the composure to do, to backheel it in like that. You'll see a lot of experienced players stop, turn, and completely fluff it. Whereas Rigg had the presence of mind to do what he did. But again, it's his performance and how he performed was just with massive maturity, and do that in front of 40,000 locals as well. And you are a local lad yourself. It was a really good performance, really good day.
One hell of a player, isn't he?
He's getting better. It's the crazy thing for him to be 17 years old and be doing what he's doing. It has surprised me at how well he's taken to this season under Regis Lillibury. I
was going to go with Chris Rigg's goal. So I think I'll go Norwich City. Just like, it's the best performance I've seen from them. They've fought off a side who, like I say, in Watford had spells in that game where they could have easily got something out of it. I thought Voakes was always available for attacking opportunities and really stretched Watford. I've got Norwich this week.
I think also with the Norwich fan base, there's a lot of positivity which they haven't had under their last two managers, and a performance like that and the attacking quality they showed, just they've all bought into Thorpe's kind of ways of playing, and I think that's going to serve them well, because under Smith and Wagner they weren't really enjoying going. I think
that's half of it as well. When they're playing well at Carrow Road, it's a hell of an atmosphere, and you feel like that positivity kind of spills over into the away performances. Slow start this season, but a big win like that I think can really kick them on maybe.
I picked out Casey Palmer for Hull. Thought he did really well on Friday night in the win over Stoke. I think he's a great signing for Hull. Obviously, he left Coventry, and we could do with a player like him at this point in time. But I think he's got that X factor of when he's on it. He can be one of the best creative players in the Championship. But it's finding that consistency for him. But I think Hull are going to give him more of a chance, more of that kind of starting role in number 10, and maybe he can have a good season. Promising signs from him. My bad. Coventry were terrible, and that's all I'm going to say on that, because we've spoken about that enough. Justin?
I've gone with Watford's performance against Norwich. I know you was talking about how good Norwich were, but I thought Watford just didn't get the basics right. I saw a lot of fans come away from the game sort of complaining about sort of not matching the energy and whatnot. And I think that's a very risky place for Watford to be, because we've seen in the past that the players just shut up shop and just stop performing for the manager. And that's the thing that would concern me, of that type of performance against Norwich. Is that going to set in for them? Is that going to be the norm? Are they going to really drop off? So Tom Cleverly's got to really find a way and get them back up again, because it was a really bad performance.
It created quite a lot. I thought from the highlights, I only saw the highlights. They seem to be an attacking threat at times, though.
Created opportunities, but I think it's the goals, the type of goals they conceded. For example, the Boy Signs one, the amount of space they vacated was again quite surprising. I know. Losing players is difficult in the game, but just defensively and how they coped with the Norwich onslaught at times, it just wasn't good enough.
Kris, you got a bad for us.
Stoke City, they got ahead. They had a great opportunity to make it 2-0 when Manoff should have at least shot across the keeper, if not squared it. And then as soon as they conceded the first goal, that they could have shipped 4 or 5. It was just one of those performances. Heads went straight down. They're in one of those spots at the moment, and I think. That's the other side of the coin of getting rid of a manager, I think, because sometimes you can think, well, we'll have a change, we'll have a reset, but actually you get players just wondering where the club's going and what are we doing here, and the confidence just looks shot on Friday night.
I don't want to say there's Cardiff vibes about Stoke, but half-empty stadium, booing at full time, it doesn't feel great, and it's a difficult job to walk into.
Yeah, and I think there are some grounds where the Friday night atmosphere can really kind of add something to a game. That felt like the worst place to be in the world as soon as Stoke City got behind on Friday. And
we'll finish with our ugly for the weekend. Mine is the Daniel Jebson miss at Norwich, because the kind of ball bounced off the post and he was in like 3 yards out maybe, and he just couldn't get his body wrapped around it, put it wide. I think it might not have changed the result, but it could have changed kind of the atmosphere around Watford. So I've picked out that one.
I've gone with Stoke's capitulation, probably just to echo what Kris was saying. I think the way their heads went down, probably befitting of a team that lost 6 games on the bounce and didn't want to be there. Whereas that's not been the case with their form. They've been doing okay, but yeah, just how quickly they dropped off was was very ugly and not a nice experience for Palach, I imagine.
I've gone full circle. The bite.
Oh, it's beautiful.
I think
like a top comedian, we've gone top to bottom, rounded it off. Beautiful.
It's not scripted. No, I think these are the cases where bans should be measured by time rather than games, because you're starting to get to a busy period of the season. If he's banned for 8 or 9 games, might be back in just over a month. Whereas I think these are situations where there should be not necessarily like it's not like a prison sentence, it's not like rehabilitation as such, but you need time to sit on what you've done with something like that. And I think like a 2 or 3 month ban, so that you're very clear that he won't be seeing a football pitch in quite a while. I think that's the way to go in situations like this sometimes.
It was indeed very ugly. Right, the last thing we're going to do is with you, Justin. We're going to do a championship midfielder. Winner stays on. Hopefully we'll come out with the best midfielder in the championship. We'll see what happens. So I'll give you a choice of 2. You pick your favourite or who you think is best. And the first one, start with, bear in mind Kris is sat next to you, Cameron Brannigan or Barry Bannan.
Yeah. Ooh. I mean, Barry Bannan's Barry Bannan, isn't he? He just scores spectacular goals, but I think Cameron Brannigan can do everything, whereas I don't think Bannan can. So I'm going to go Cameron Brannigan there.
just a look. Brannigan or Max Bird?
I think Brannigan tips Max Bird. I love Max Bird, but I think Brannigan, again, has got a lot more about his game than Bird has.
Brannigan or Matt Grimes?
I'll go Matt Grimes on that.
Very good player. He just seems to control games.
Yeah,
so
he does it effortlessly as
unbelievable.
well.
Him, Matt Grimes or Marcelino Nunes?
It's difficult because Gabsaro took the plaudits last season, and maybe Nunes didn't get the plaudits that he maybe should have got, but I'll stick with Matt Grimes on that one.
Matt Grimes or Aidan Morris?
Okay, Matt Grimes.
Not quite had enough time, Morris. Yeah,
Exactly,
I think there's definitely a player in there.
He's quality. He looks quality. He's got everything about him. He's tough. He's hardworking, and he's got an eye for a pass, which is what you need.
So Matt Grimes or man of the moment, Chris Rigg?
I go Matt Grimes. Matt Grimes has been there and done it.
Yeah, wait 6 months.
Yeah.
Talking to someone who's been there and done it, Matt Grimes or Josh Brownhill?
Just the amount of goals Josh Brownhill scored in that promotion season for Burnley was incredible, and the type of goals he scored as well. So I'll go with Brownhill.
Josh Brownhill or Marvellous Nakamba?
I don't think I've seen Marvellous Nakamba pass forward, so I'll go Josh Brownhill.
He's a great player.
It's not his job. He's a great player, but I think Brownhill, again, you're looking for an all-action midfielder. I think Brownhill's got that.
Brownhill or Ethan Ampadu?
Ampadu's a defender, isn't he?
He plays in midfield too often. I had to include him.
Despite picking him for my player of the season shout on the show, I'll go with Josh Brownhill.
Josh Brownhill and this might affect whether you're invited back or not, Ben Sheff.
I get Ben...
the injury-prone Ben Sheff.
Yeah, it's frustrating because there's a lot of recency bias that's making me want to pick Josh Brownhill, but Ben Sheff is an incredibly good player when he's fit and firing, and again, we're seeing how bad Coventry are without him. But I'm going to go Josh Brownhill.
Okay, and the last one, Josh Brownhill or Gustavo Hamer?
Gus Hamer. Gus Hamer, hands down, is the best midfielder in the division. And he's being played out of position by Chris Wilder. If anything, that free kick sums up the quality that he's got, that he scored against Derby at the weekend. Because he's got that in the bag. He's can be a nasty player at times. We saw I can't remember who it was against now, just before the international break, a wild tackle. I think it was against Watford. I can't quite remember now, but it was a wild challenge. But he's got a bit of bite about him, bit of aggression, and he can pass for days as well. Just a beautiful player to watch.
He's already got 4 goals this season as well. I know he's playing like this weird attacking left role, but I cannot believe he's still in the Championship. Like,
it shouldn't be.
It seemed like everything Sheffield United did well on Saturday had Hamer's fingerprint on it as well.
He basically, I mean, if you look at Coventry's run to the playoff final, he scored in the semi-final at Middlesbrough, he scored in the playoff final. He was very nearly dragged us to the Premier League, and he got his move to Sheffield United, didn't work out. I just can't believe he's back in the Championship.
Yeah, you've been on the verge of tears a couple of times now.
Him, Gyökeres, O'Hare, I mean, the good old days. Right, that will finish it there with Gus Hamer being named the best midfielder in the Championship. Thank you very much for watching. Like and subscribe as usual, and we'll see you next week on the Sportsman Untitled.